Welcome back, everybody, to the Shoot Fast podcast. I am your host, Cody Axon, sitting down once again with Joel Park.
Hi there.
So, this week we're going to talk about, we both did matches this week, and we're just going to talk about what's going on currently. So, first off, what did you shoot this week, Joel?
I shot a Steel Challenge match, which normally a Steel Challenge match in February would not be something really exciting to me, but I had a good time. It was good just to get out because we have not had very many nice days. So it was actually a nice enough day to go to the range.
What do you consider a nice day? How nice was it?
It needs to be over 40. And I got up to like 50-ish.
Oh, that's really nice.
It was awesome. It was a little cool in the morning, a little windy, but at the end it was good. Anyway, the reason I really went, I was debating between shooting that or just practicing. And I decided it was just a good day to validate that I'd been dry firing correctly. So, or that it was at least, I was seeing improvement from it. So, for Steel, I'm sure everybody's familiar, it was 6 stages. I had 5 strings on each of those stages, except for one, Outer Limits, which was 4. So it's kind of like a lot of stages, if you think about it in that way. You have a lot of drawing.
Yeah, and our club, because this was a local match at the Eastern Nebraska Gun Club, correct?
Correct.
And they always just run the standard Steel Challenge. I know some places they'll do like Outlaw, or they'll do like their own Steel Challenge. That's allowed by the rules now. You can make your own special stages, but they always just run the standard stages, which I like anyway. So you ran 6 of those standard Steel Challenge stages.
Yeah, so I saw it as just an opportunity to really treat it like a match that I really cared about.
Have you been live firing at all lately?
I've only live fired once with you. It was the only time since maybe Nationals, maybe one other time.
Really? So that's what, once?
Other than that, just our indoor matches with 2 stages, which I don't really count as much of practice. So I had not shot much at all.
So you've shot maybe like 2 or 3 actual full-on live fire sessions in the last, 5 months? 4 months?
4 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was just a good way to validate that hopefully dry fire was helping. And I was actually, normally I'm pretty dissatisfied. That's no secret. Obviously, we've talked about that. But for once, I was actually genuinely happy with how I did. I did win center fire. So I beat the PCC dudes. Only got beat by a couple rim fires. But that really wasn't what I was excited about. It wasn't the number that I placed. It was how I felt about how I did. I felt like, and you looked at my times. I think you texted me later that day. You looked at them. They weren't my all-time best, but I was fairly close, I would say, than what my average would be normally. So
yeah, all your times were pretty sporty. I mean, we've talked about it before. That's one thing I really like about Steel Challenge. I'm a bigger fan of Steel Challenge than Joel is. You really didn't shoot at all until, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And I kind of had to, pull out your fingernails to get you to finally come to a Steel Challenge match. Because I enjoy them. I wasn't there because, obviously, I was in Florida, which we'll get into that later. But I always like those matches just for the being able to measure yourself against past performances.
Yeah.
Especially since neither of us trained specifically for Steel Challenge. So if you go to Steel Challenge match and you're substantially better than you were, it just means that you've gotten better. Your skills have gotten better. And as a result, your Steel Challenge times have gotten better. So that's what I like about it. And
yeah. So there was 2 open dudes that I was shooting against. One is M class and one's A that should be an M class. So to beat those guys, which are really solid shooters, and felt like gun handling, shooting, all that stuff, I felt like it was good. So that encouraged me. Now I'm ready to train harder because I feel like I'm headed in the right direction. So more so than the finish, I was just happy with how I did, and I was glad about it.
Good.
Which is good. So enough about that crap. No one cares. Tell me about the Florida Open.
Yeah. So I had never gone to a Florida Open before. For those who aren't aware, Florida Open is every year. I think they pretty much always have it the same weekend. It's like the right in the middle of February at the Universal Shooting Academy in Frostproof, Florida. Frostproof, the range there, that's kind of been almost everything important has been there for the last few years.
IPSC Nationals was there, right?
IPSC Nationals is there every year.
The World Shoot was there once, right?
In 2014, the World Shoot was there. And I think a lot of the facilities there were actually built for the World Shoot in 2014. Like, they added a bunch of bays and stuff. Because it's there's like 30 pistol bays all side by side. And so that range is kind of a big deal. Like, they've had a whole bunch of USPSA Nationals there they have at least one USPSA Nationals there every year for the last, I think as long as I've been shooting, there's always a Nationals there. So Part of why I went was I just wanted to get familiar with the range, especially since we'll be going to USPSA Nationals later this year there. Just to get familiar with the range, kind of get familiar with the flavor of the match there, like we talked about before, and just kind of get a lay of the land and see what it's like. Also, the Florida Open has a really good reputation of being a really popular, like really challenging match. People who go to it just really like it. Everybody kind of raves about it being one of the best matches of the year, and so yeah, there's multiple reasons why I wanted to go, and ultimately I'm glad I went.
So what did you think about the range? I've never seen it, obviously, other than just videos. I've never been there. You said there's a bunch of bays. Is it a lot of walking? Is stuff close together? Grass, dirt, gravel? Just tell me what it looks like.
So one thing I immediately noticed, and I was expecting this, but it's still, I have this experience every time I go to a new range. All these ranges I always see in shooting matches. Like, so last year I went to Area 6, which is at the range in Covington, Georgia. The first time I went to St. George, Utah. Like, I see these ranges in match videos, like for previous nationals and stuff. And in my mind, they're always gonna like be this like larger than life thing. Like, I'm gonna go, it's gonna be like this really awesome, over the top, like best range I've ever seen, like super cool thing. And I mean, all those places I mentioned, they're all nice ranges, but it's like you go there and like it's just another shooting range. Like, it looks kind of like all the other shooting ranges.
Is it spread out like PASA? Do you need golf carts to drive you around?
No, it is nothing like PASA. So you don't need to get your like hiking boots and like your camel pack, and your pack of lunch so that you can like lay out. Halfway to walking.
You see bewildered people standing there, just hoping somebody will come by with a golf cart to take pity on them to give them a ride.
No, it's probably, I think, around 30 or more bays, and they are all directly side by side, and they are set across the way from each other. So it is just one road with bays opening on either side, straight down for like almost a quarter mile, like straight down of just bays side by side. So it's a really nice layout because they had it where you'd shoot one bay and you go across the road to the other bay. So I mean, you really only ever had to move like 30 feet at a time. So that's nice. I was like that.
Was it all rocked, gravel, dirt?
So there's a lot of grass on a lot of the bays, but I think the majority of the surface you're actually running around on, I'm pretty sure it's just the dirt, like the local dirt. I'm not a horticulture specialist or anything like that, but it's this real like kind of fine like sand dirt, and I think that's just what dirt looks like in Florida, but I don't know. Either way, it's kind of like a sand, like almost finer than sand kind of substance.
It's like every time your magazine hits the ground, you're mag brushing it kind of deal.
Yes, absolutely.
That's where I was going. With
so
this.
Absolutely. Every single time I dropped anything on the ground, I was picking it up, and I had a hotel towel that I ruined, wiping all my bags off and brushing them out. Because you definitely needed that for that range. So
okay, that's where I was getting at with that. Clubhouse, they have like running water for bathrooms.
Yeah, there was like there's
all like porta potties.
No, I mean there is porta potties. There's a bathroom, but it wasn't anything particular. I don't think there was air conditioning in there, so that was a little iffy. There was like a clubhouse area. I didn't go in it at all, and there also was like a big covered area where they had
like awards type of thing or vendors.
Yeah, where they had vendors. Like Mark 7 had their new auto drive setup, like the native auto drive press. I really want.
I think that's so cool.
I know, but if only I had $1 million, I would buy one of those. So there was that sort of thing. Other than that, I mean, it really was just kind of your standard, major range setup. I mean, nothing particularly special, but it's always nice just to kind of go and just be there, and just so that way, when I get ready for nationals, I can kind of picture, okay, I'm going to be in this place that I've already been before, and it just adds that level of familiarity, which is always nice.
No food on the range then either, I'm guessing. You had to go somewhere else?
No, they had a food truck for lunch, but it was like, for whatever reason, shooting matches, like barbecue is the lunch of choice.
I like the heaviest food. Yeah, like kind of a baked potato. Also, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I'll take 2 full racks of ribs, a baked potato.
Just for the record, I'm not eating any of that crap. I don't care what they're serving. I'll bring my own stuff. But it's interesting, and people want to know about that.
Yeah, I don't. And I'm not like I always like to eat during matches, but this was shot on half day formats. So my first day, I think I shot my first stage at 12:30 or 1 and shot, I think, until 5 or so. And the second day was in the morning, and then we were done by like 12:30 or so. So I didn't eat lunch either day because I was either eating lunch before I got there or after I was leaving.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so there was food there. There's not a ton of stuff close to the range. I mean, there's like McDonald's like probably 10-15 minutes away.
I wouldn't order a water from McDonald's.
It was an ordeal trying to get breakfast at McDonald's the day before because the morning of, because they messed it up, but it was my fault that they messed it up.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing.
So you're starting off your day eating McDonald's. You might as well just call in sick. Just go back to the hotel. Oh, interesting. Okay. What about stage design? Was there anything gimmicky, hosey? Was it a mix? What did you think?
I would say one gripe, probably the biggest gripe I have with the match, is that it
looks like tough.
It was all 28 to 32 round stages. I think the lowest round count was, I think there might have been a 28 or 29 round stage. Everything else, they were all basically 32 round stages. Which, I mean, I like 32 round stages, but I don't really like that for a full match. I would rather...
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, I would rather see something that's more like the IPSC rules of where you got to have a certain number of short stages.
3 short, 2 medium, 1 long course, or whatever it is.
And it doesn't need to be that exactly, but I do like the idea of mixing together a lot of different round counts of stages. But yeah, so it was all 32 round stages for everything.
It looked like you needed to aim on everything. There wasn't really hosey stuff, was there?
No, I mean, there was any kind of hosing stuff was like, we're going to have 2 targets stacked up over here in the middle of the stage. And so, yeah, you can run up to those and just bang those out. But but that's just like 2 targets on the stage, and everything else is pretty difficult. So I would say on the whole, it was probably the most difficult USPSA match I've ever shot from a shot difficulty perspective and just kind of a technical perspective. If you're not familiar with Florida Open, one of their things is it is all the classic targets, so the stop sign shaped targets. I don't know why. I think there's some historical reason, but I don't really care to go into what it is. There's for some reason that's what they do.
More politically correct, possibly.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe have something to do with trying to bring in other international competitors. I really don't know, but so that's what they do there, and they. For whatever reason, so this was like the 20th anniversary match, and for whatever reason, I guess maybe back in the day they used to not ever use no-shoots at Florida Open, because that was one thing they did for this year in particular, was they said they were going to do no-shoots for the whole match. So there wasn't any no-shoots for the match, but there was still a lot of like partial targets where they use either hardcover. One target presentation that I had not, I don't think, ever seen before.
I saw they were cut in half for one stage.
No, there was a lot of that. Those were spread all over the place. There was one stage where it was all targets cut in half. So basically, it
was like 1 per, wasn't it?
I think what they did was they just took those classic targets and just cut the bottom half off of all, and they had a huge stack of them that they had done because they used them on a bunch of different stages. And there was a little black bar of hardcover along the bottom of those targets, and those targets were on a bunch of stages. So yeah, there was one stage where you had to do 1 per on like basically 30 of those targets, of those little half targets. There was another stage where there was swingers. There's 2. Actually,
I saw that.
Actually, no. There was 2 stages. There was 2 different stages where there was 2 swingers. So 4 total swingers that were those half targets, and that was brutal. So
I see that being demoralizing. So is it safe to say that nationals would be classic targets then? Is that a safe assumption, or any prediction there?
I would imagine they'll have some, because from watching previous nationals videos from Frostproof, I do think that they like to incorporate them. I remember looking at like Optics Nationals videos from last year, which was I think in like March or April, whatever.
Yeah, it was early in the year.
I remember watching videos from that, and there were some interesting stages where they had some really tight partials set up with classic targets, but I know there was still some traditional metric targets mixed in there. So I would imagine there's still going to be metric targets in nationals. I have a hard time seeing, especially since I know USPSA exercises a lot of control over nationals. I don't think there's any way they're going to completely forsake metric targets for an entire nationals match, but definitely it's something if you don't have them, or you've never practiced on them, or you get to a stage that has the classic targets and you're like, oh no, that's probably something you want to practice just in general. I mean, that's not even just nationals advice, that's for everything. And I always like practicing on those targets just for something different.
And learn where to hold. This is kind of unrelated, but learn where to hold to get alphas. Don't shoot it. You cannot shoot at the center of brown on those.
Yeah, you basically got to shoot.
Where like the go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, you shoot a little bit above the dead center of the target. A nice way to look at it from further away is basically the intersection of the corners. I can't explain this out loud.
I know what you're trying to say. That's what I was getting right at. Where you have the top section's flat, and then from that you have two angles going down to the left and right on each way. And where you get to those edges, if you drew a line straight across the target, that's where I would hold.
Yeah,
if I explain that at all.
It doesn't make sense, but
whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
Just Google it and find out where the letter A is and shoot there.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't shoot for the center of brown.
Yeah. So that was a little bit different, but that's whatever. I've Area 6 last year I also shot, and that match they did all classic targets just for fun. So that's really not an issue for me. That's just whatever. But anyway, so there was a lot of really tight targets with either cut in half or with hard cover on them, taking off a lot of the target. But I would say the majority of the difficulty of the shots wasn't because of the targets being really small. They did a lot of things that I hadn't really thought of or really practiced before to make targets difficult, which makes me really glad that I went, because that's stuff that I'm missed out in practice. So
perfect. I like the sound of this.
One stage that in particular that comes to mind there was one where you basically, a lot of the shots you were taking were from probably 20 to 25 yards, and you were doing it through a narrow gap in some barrels that were downrange.
Oh.
So the positioning of where your actual body had to be was a very tight window of you had to hit the spot exactly, otherwise you weren't able to shoot all the targets that you could shoot through that gap. And one of those gaps was I think a mini popper, and I think it was one of the I guess you call them the classic mini poppers. They don't have the heads on them, so it's even smaller than a regular mini popper. So it was a mini popper at probably 20 yards, and then that dropped out a swinger that you could only take through this gap in the wall. That was at 20 yards, and so you basically got it at the dwell at the end of the arc, and a little bit more, and then it was gone. I think I had I know I had a miss on that one. I think it might have been like a Delta mic or something like that on the target. It was a really hard target to shoot.
Was that like a target where it was just tough to find your position to set up, or was it hidden to the point where people would forget it and get like a FTE kind of deal? Well, it was easy to see. It was just tough to find the right spot.
I don't know. So we can talk about this later. I was on a squad with like almost entirely top shooters. Not because
you are a top shooter.
No, it's not because it was like I was put on a super squad or anything like that. It's because I don't know. It's just people how everybody registered. So I was on a squad with like Chris Tilley and
Manny Bragg. You said
Manny Bragg, and then another Team Infinity open shooter guy who was really good. I don't remember his name. And everybody else on my squad, everybody on my squad was a pretty decent shooter. So nobody had any issues of like forgetting targets or anything like that. So I can't really speak to the whole match of what other people were doing. But nobody on my squad had any issues with forgetting targets. I don't really think that was the issue so much as much as it was like because the walls were see-through. So you could see that there was targets there. You just had to get to a very certain spot to actually be able to aim at them. So no, like that target in particular, where you're shooting at that swinger, it wasn't that I couldn't find it or anything like that, or that I wasn't in the right position. It was just a very technically difficult shot to make.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then it was more, so yeah, then I remember that particular stage, then it was like 2 stack targets, again, through a tight window, and then you move down, there was another tight window, and another 2 stack targets, like 20 yards, and then some mini poppers, and then at the very end, it was like an actually pretty easy swinger, where it was at like 10 yards, and it was actually wide open where you could see it for the whole arc, and that was probably the easiest swinger of the entire match, probably about the easiest swinger you're ever going to see. So that stage at least had a good mix of where it had some easy stuff, but that was one of the hardest stages I've ever shot. And then there was, like I said, there was 2 different stages that had those the half targets on swingers. So one of those, I think I fired 3 or 4 shots on one of them, because I was following my sights, calling my shots, and just like I would fire shots, and I'm like, I don't like that one. Like I don't know if that's there, and then I'd fire another one. I'm like, I don't know about that one. And then eventually it's like, okay, I fired 4 shots at it. Like I can't just shoot this one target all day. And then I fired, I think, 3 shots at the other one. And at the end of the stage, when I went down and looked at that target, I think all 3 shots were in that inch of black bar at the bottom of the target. And so I had 2 mics on it, and I didn't actually put any in the brown on that target, but I think I put a whole bunch in the hardcover on the target, which is a very narrow area. So I was like just barely off. And then the next stage, I think the next time I came back to those targets towards the end of the match, I think I fired like 4 rounds on each of them. And I know one of them was like a Edge Delta and maybe like a Charlie. And like I was hanging hits on those targets, but barely. And again, it was an issue of like I was putting rounds out there. I was trying to call my shots. I was watching my sights, and it's just like I don't know where these are going. Like because they were really fast targets that go over the top. So a lot of USPSA matches, especially like local matches, they'll set up swingers in a very friendly, like easy way, where the swinger is behind some sort of cover on one side, and then it comes out. You see the entire arc, and then it stops at the bottom, and you can still see it where it stops and turns around, and you can see the entire arc on the way back. So you basically have like 3/4 of the entire arc of the swinger in view, where you can be shooting at the target the whole time,
or be following it, tracking it, whatever.
So those aren't that difficult once you kind of just learn how to shoot a swinger. But the majority of the swingers at the Florida Open were the kind of the IPSC, what I would consider the IPSC style, where it is just over the top. So instead of you getting the dwell on one end and then it's covered on the other end, basically the dwell is covered on either end, and you only get it going over the top when it's more or less moving at full speed. So the way to shoot those is you aim at where they're going to come out. Then as soon as it comes out, you start aiming on it, and then you fire a shot. Depending on how fast it is, you either fire 1 or 2 shots during the arc, and then you wait for it to come back out going the other way, and then you do the same thing. You track it going across, and you try and fire shots as it's still moving because it's not going to stop ever while it's in view. I am not very good at that. I've not really practiced it. I think up to this point I've kind of gotten by on swingers.
Me too.
I see swingers at a match on a stage, and it's like, well, I'm not like super thrilled about this. I'm not great at swingers, but I'm not like going to freak out about it. I'm just going to shoot it. And generally, they work out okay.
I'll settle for 2 Charlies and just move on with the day.
This match definitely has me convinced that I need to do a lot of work on swingers in a variety of presentations. Like I said, there was the one where you did get the dwell on one end, but you only got like half the arc because it was way down range and it was covered by a barrel, and it was you still didn't have that much to shoot at. And then those half targets on swingers where you only get the top half, it was pretty brutal from that perspective. Is the swingers I was not prepared for, and the results on those stages definitely showed from it.
Was there anything else you weren't prepared for that you saw that you? How's your training going to change because of that, or anything else that you want to address before the end of the year? Obviously.
So, one thing that I found really interesting, and I kind of talked about this already with one of those stages I was talking about, was there was multiple stages where you had to get to a very precise spot to be able to find the target and shoot it. And that was done not through like you have to lean around a wall. It was done with walls that were downrange somewhere. And basically you just had to find that spot and hit that exact spot. Otherwise you were going to have to shuffle step one side or the other because you had to hit very precise foot positions. And then there's a lot of spots where I would basically find a spot, put my feet there, and then roll my upper body to be able to take multiple targets from one spot. But I still had to kind of move between there. So that's stuff that I'm definitely interested to set up more of.
So it'd be like the IPSC, more technical type of stages, I think.
Yeah, and that's stuff that I like because it's really an interesting way to make stages more difficult without just putting no shoots on everything.
Without doing 3 per or bringing everything super close or everything far away.
Yeah, just without doing some sort of like... I feel like that's a way to make a stage difficult and like drive down the hit factor without it being like a weird gimmick. Like if you have to move a whole bunch to shoot, maybe you got to stop in a spot and you're only going to shoot 1 or 2 targets from there. I do like that stuff, but I can't say that I've practiced it too terribly much. And that definitely popped up a lot in this match. So that's something that I need to work on. Those are kind of the main things that stuck out to me. Just I focus a lot on difficult shooting, and this match kind of just has me convinced that I'm on the right track, that I need to continue working on difficult shooting. And while it's fun to like hose stuff and get like just trying to get faster, if I want to do well at a nationals at Frostproof, it's probably more productive to take the speed that I already have and just try and maintain that, maybe get that a little bit better, but then really try and drive up my accuracy and my ability to hit activators and that sort of thing, rather than, going out and hosing on El Presidente for the next 8 months until nationals.
Yeah, and just to explain, normally Cody and I we shoot together a lot. Normally our practice is not easy now the way it is. There is some stuff where we could be struggling to shoot clean runs, possibly based on the difficulty or distance or partials.
Yeah, and I would suggest that for most people, but just a little tangent on practicing really hard stuff. If you're like, let's say you're a newer shooter, you're somebody who isn't super great at really difficult shooting, I wouldn't set up something that's so difficult that like you can never do it. Like you're getting like 6 mics on a 12 round drill. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't do that. But this kind of stuff that Joel's talking about, it's like you could run the whole thing really well, like you hit everything just right, like you feel really good about it, and then you go down range and you have a mic or a no shoot or something, like it's just out of reach. Where it's really frustrating, and that's definitely good stuff to do.
But you're not shooting for the stars. You're not doing a head box at 50 yards if that's not something you're capable of.
Yeah, so
just difficult things.
Yeah, so the thing that I had to keep in mind during this match that was helpful to know ahead of time was that basically nobody got out of the match without a penalty.
I saw that.
I don't think that any of like the division winners, I don't think anybody got out of it without a penalty.
Deltas or mics.
Yeah,
like everybody had at least something.
Yeah, maybe there was somebody who like shot like a turtle and hit everything. I didn't go through every single person's results. There may be somebody who didn't have any penalty, but everybody who was in contention to actually like do really well in the match, everybody had mics, everybody had penalties because it was that kind of match. So knowing that, I had a mic on my very first stage. It was about an inch into hardcover on a target. I had a bunch of those. I had a bunch of mics where it was like, it was on target. It was just in a hardcover that was like an inch away from the target. So that's a mic. Either way, it doesn't matter how close the mic is. It's still a mic. But I had a mic on the first stage, but it was otherwise a pretty good run. And so that was very helpful to know, like, okay, everybody is going to have mics in this match because that's just the kind of match it is. And I didn't let that be, at the end of my day of, okay, now I'm just going to quit. And then I had this very first stage on the second day was a stage where I had 3 mics on it because it was one of those ones where that I talked about earlier with the half swingers. So I got 2 mics on one, and then at the very end of the stage I wound up running my gun dry because I had a bunch of extra shots on steel. I should have done an extra reload, but I didn't. I came around to the very last target. I fired 1 round on it, went to fire the second round on it, and my gun clicked. And, had I known that I had 2 more mics down range, it would have been worth it to reload and shoot. But I thought I had a pretty good run, and, the time with 1 mic would be acceptable. In retrospect, I should have reloaded and shot, but, hindsight is 20/20. So, one stage with 3 mics, and I think I had, a couple mics on the first day, and just, push through it, just realize everybody's going to have those issues. And, I really didn't feel particularly good about my performance at the end of the day, just because I hadn't been training the way that I want to. It's still early in the year. It's still cold outside, and I'm not as prepared. I wasn't as prepared to shoot this match as I would be for nationals at the end of the year. But I just accepted that and just did my best, and it went how it went. I can't say that I'm like completely crushed at how it went, but I'm not over the moon excited about how it went either.
Yeah, it's good practice, just in mindset for how nationals could be, because realistically you could get squatted where you start on some stage that's super tough, and you could have a mic on your first stage at nationals.
Yeah.
And going kamikaze or trying to push hard to make it up, or any number of dumb things you could do. So it's good to have practice at least with maybe a more disappointing, if you could call it that, match.
Yeah, and I will say I was expecting. It seems like every match that I've watched video of at Frostproof, they always use some sort of slider prop. I don't think I've ever actually shot a slider.
Did they have one?
I saw the bay that had one, where it was still set up on the bay, but that was not one of the bays that we were using for the match. Basically, what I mean is like a slider where basically the targets are on like a track, and you shoot an activator, and then they slide going linearly across on a track, like they're in a mine cart or something like that, and they just keep going in one direction, and they get to the end and they stop, and usually they're covered in some way at the end. So I was actually expecting a target like that, but I didn't see it. I would imagine there'll be something like that at Nationals, but I don't have access. I mean, that's a very expensive prop, and there's basically no way that I can get one to practice that. But, if you practice on swingers, you practice on moving targets, it's the same fundamentals either way.
Plus, those take long enough just to set up and practice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Anything else that you disliked or that you really liked?
They did have a really good setup for the warm-up and sight-in bays. Mm-hmm. So I got to the match, and I was like, my hands were shaking before the first day. Like,
I've done that before.
Yeah, so I went to the warm-up area. I was gonna try and shoot a group to make sure my gun was hitting where I wanted to, make sure I didn't need to adjust the sights, something like that, since it was significantly warmer than when I had worked up that load and way different climate, just to make sure. And I could not shoot a group to save my life. Just physically, I could not do it. I'm like, okay, this is great. And then they had, so they had that set up, and that was at the way far end, so it was a pretty long walk to get down there. But then, again, I would always make sure you ask an RO before you do this, which I did. I went and asked the range master before, hey, where can we shoot for warm up or practice bays? And he basically said any of the bays. So they had some steel challenge stages actually set up on some of the bays, and you were allowed to use those for warm up. So
cool.
So I used some of those for warm up, and then because I was nervous and wasn't feeling good about the first rounds that came out of the gun, I shot a little too much, and then I think I only brought 10 rounds home from the match. The very last stage is okay, if I get a reshoot, I'm gonna have to
oh crap,
steal ammo from somebody else. So because I brought 150 extra rounds, and I shot 120 of those on the first day before I even shot a stage.
And that was with your mule loaded up with ammo too. So,
yeah,
which
yeah.
We'll get to.
So that wasn't a good idea. If you're flying to a match and you have a limited amount of ammo, probably you shouldn't go and shoot half of it on the first day just to warm up.
Lessons from Cody.
Yeah. So that's all I got on that.
Cool.
Any other questions you think on that?
I don't think so.
All right. So we are also going to talk about the USPSA rule changes today.
That have been just flooding the internet, Facebook,
yeah,
Instagram.
That's it's a really hot topic right now. Some people are really upset about it. I think a few people are happy about it, and a lot of people are indifferent about it. So I think those are really the three camps. I would say Joel and I, before we get too far into it, I think we can safely say that we're more or less in the indifferent camp. But we'll get more specific about that as we go along here. So, do you want to explain real quick what are the changes to production that have been voted in?
Well, I've looked. There's a lot of documents on the website, and so kind of after
you can't be expected to read.
Yeah, after shuffling through that, it felt like homework. So one of the most I think controversial thing is the internal parts being changed. So if they're I should let you talk about all this crap.
Okay.
If it's aftermarket and it fits the profile and design of what the original was, like a hammer, and it doesn't change the gun greatly.
Let me explain this
because you're whatever.
Because it's always been internal parts were allowed to be changed. If you couldn't see them while the gun was, if the gun was just sitting on the table and every part you could see was a factory part, then it was legal, except for the sights. That was the rule before. Now the rule is that any kind of small part, so basically triggers, your actual
hammer,
your actual trigger shoe is, so you can do a Zev, red trigger on your Glock if you want. You can change the hammer to a Cajun Gunworks hammer because I guess some USPSA officials are good friends with the Cajun Gunworks people. And Cajun Gunworks had to move some hammers.
That's speculation.
So we had to change the rules on that.
Keep it factual. Moving on.
Overruled. So that's kind of the main thing is you can change any small magazine releases, slide releases.
Goody!
All the small parts on the outside of the gun you can change. You can also stipple the grip as much as you want now.
Yeah, before there was like a limited area where you could only, they have like a picture on their website and you can only stipple inside certain areas.
So if you want to undercut your trigger guard, like to be super tactical on your Glock, you can do that now, which is actually good, because when I did briefly shoot a Glock in competition, my middle finger on my strong hand, my knuckle was just shredded from that trigger guard.
Driving finger?
Sure. That my middle finger was just shredded from going under the trigger guard. There's like a real sharp corner there on a Glock. So before, just knocking that edge off, that was illegal in production, and now you can do that pretty much to your heart's content.
You can also remove finger grooves also.
Yeah, so if you wanted to go like a full grip job, there's a lot of companies that do that sort of thing. Again, a lot of companies that support USPSA and sponsor matches.
Why not?
Will do like custom grip jobs on your Glock to reshape it, that sort of thing. That's pretty much all legal now. Don't take my word for it. I mean, if you're going to do that stuff and spend hundreds of dollars on it, you should probably actually look at the rule book. But
also,
that's my understanding.
These rules do not go into effect for 90 days.
For production.
For production, yes. So don't go out and start like hacking on your gun right now.
Yeah, if you're
because you'll be shooting open division for whatever, I don't know, another 80-something days.
Yeah. I mean, if you're planning on going to a major match, especially in like April, you probably shouldn't do this to your gun, because you're not going to be shooting open or limited with your production gun. That's not going to go very well for you. So, I mean,
you can also widen the magazine well. I guess people can go inside.
You could already do that.
I guess.
Say you could like basically Dremel out your mag well a little bit from the inside, as long as it's not externally visible.
Sure.
But ultimately, I mean, so your gun still has to be a production gun on the production list. You can't like do an aftermarket slide or anything like that. You can't you can't like switch out your Glock for all Lone Wolf parts where you have a Lone Wolf lower that doesn't look anything like a Glock, and a Lone Wolf. You can't do that. You can't do like that kind of crazy stuff. But pretty much any small part you can change now.
So why should I care?
I mean, I don't really think you should care that much.
That was my point. Like,
so,
who cares?
So the reasoning put out by USPSA, and Mike Foley did an interview actually on the...
I actually quoted it right here.
On RX podcast, what's it called? The Firearms Nation podcast. So Mike Foley did an interview on there, and it was actually really good. I mean, if you're interested in what's going on with USPSA and what Mike Foley has to say, I would recommend you listen to it.
I had a quote from their DNROI. It was on the PowerPoint that was on their website. But he said basically unenforceable rules are a waste of time and effort. Almost 50% of rules questions to DNROI were production equipment issues.
Yeah.
And I do really get that, because if you show up and I shoot open division and some guy shows up with CZ with some Cajun Gunworks, why do you expect me as a volunteer in a volunteer sport, you expect me to know all the parts that came factory on some division that I don't care about? That's not realistic.
Yeah.
So I do really get the ruling part for that.
Well, and like, so CZs, I think, CZs and Tenfolios are kind of the main driving factor, I think, behind this sort of thing in production, because it's like CZ, especially CZ Custom, has put out like a million different things. Like, there is so many different models of CZ Shadows on the production list. I shot CZs for 2 or 3 years, and you shot CZs for like 10 years.
Yeah, before it was cool.
Before it was cool. Thank you for adding that. But I have no idea like what every model of CZ, and I know CZs pretty well. Like, I worked on my own CZs. I bought aftermarket parts for it, and I knew what was legal and what wasn't legal. So to expect somebody I don't know every trigger shoe they've ever put out, every obscure part that has ever been put out. I don't know, and
it doesn't matter.
So to expect like every RO, or maybe the RO, maybe let's just say you designate it that the RO at the chronograph has to know all this stuff. Like, you would need to put this person through years of training. Like, they would be a professional gunsmith and know every gun, like be a historian of every part that's ever been put on every gun. Like, it's not reasonable. So I think, our previous system that was in place that, I think worked okay. And I get the argument of people on the side was, well, anybody who was a serious competitor would already follow the rules, because they know that, you could put an aftermarket hammer on your Tanfolio or something, and you could run it for 2 years and nobody would notice. And then one day at a match, maybe at nationals
or an area match or something.
Some guy would say, "Wait a minute, that's I'm like, what's that?" Your RO's an amateur, 10 folio gunsmith.
Yeah.
And he looks at your gun and say, "Wait a minute, what's that hammer?" And then now you're getting bumped to open at this one match after having shot that for like 2 years. That's the most likely scenario where you would actually get caught for this.
Yeah. I didn't know wouldn't be a sufficient answer.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you could say that, and that's fine, but you would still be caught, and you would get bumped to open. So I think everybody kind of had that scenario in their mind of like, if you're a serious competitor, it's not worth trying to cheat the system, and you just use the factory parts and you follow the rules.
Or get shamed on Facebook.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely
that is a legitimate reason for some people to follow the rules.
There is a very strong culture in USPSA where if you get caught messing something up, you'll get crucified on the internet for doing so.
Yeah.
So if you got caught intentionally cheating with your gun, people would light you up for it. So I think most people were trying to follow the rules.
I think so too.
So I don't know if there was a huge problem before, but it's like if we're going to have these rules, then we should probably actually have to be something that's enforceable rather than this kind of buddy system where people are probably going to follow the rules. I mean, it's kind of like all the gun control argument stuff that are going on. It's like people are going to follow the rules and they're not going to follow the rules. Like changing, having these really strict rules and just expecting people to follow them by their own accord. It's a weird system of trying to enforce it that way. So they changed the rules to being something that's much more enforceable, which is basically, the major parts have to be production. You can stipple the gun like we talked about, but if you want to change out your hammer or your trigger, or, if you want to have some cool, crazy Glock trigger that's like a flat trigger, or you want to have some super duper hammer on your CZ that makes your trigger pull way better, then you can do that. Or if you want a big purple mag release on your gun, then that's fine.
Maybe metal guns will be obsolete now that people can use. They could take the finger grooves off and have their flat trigger. Maybe Glock 34s will be the new heat again. Yeah,
because you can take your Glock 34 now and you can take the finger grooves off. You can open up the mag well a little bit more. You can
get your flat trigger.
You can get your flat trigger, and have a 2-pound trigger on everything. I mean, you could set up a striker-fired gun to be almost like a limited gun in production, and it'd be super awesome. But that's not really any different than what people were already doing anyway. I mean, there already was the SIG X5, which was already that way. I mean, from the factory, it was basically a USPSA limited gun, just a plastic production gun, and so it was legal to use.
Anyway, we're beating a dead horse. In the end of this, I think it's easier to enforce. The guys that were going to win are still going to win. The guys that were going to be in contention are still going to be in contention to win. All this does is make it easier on volunteer staff for a sport that's supposed to be fun.
And I just don't think it matters that much.
No.
Why would it? Do you think the top production shooters are going to change anything on their guns?
No.
I mean, okay, so the top two from production nationals last year, Alex Gute and Ben Steger, they both shoot 10 folios.
But that also, you have to figure, IPSC rules have not changed either.
Yeah.
So you could potentially then set up a gun for production that would not be legal for IPSC if you cared about that.
And it was already that way anyway. I mean, I think
that's true.
I think the handful of people who shoot IPSC production and USPSA production, I think most of those people either have separate guns they use for IPSC or they have other parts they change out in their guns. Because you can't use aftermarket springs. You can't do anything aftermarket in IPSC. Even the springs, somehow, again, it's an unenforceable rule. Because how are you going to tell what spring is manufactured by what company? But that is the rule. And so if you're going to follow the rules to the letter, then you need to change all your springs out and everything. So I think everybody who shot IPSC production kind of already did that anyway.
Possible. The other one we left out is the 4-ounce weight increase or something in production. Or
so
I saw the post about the base pads made of brass because they're going to make the gun so much heavier and it's just going to be amazing.
On the production list for all the guns that are approved for production, it has a weight listed next to it. So I don't know what I think a 10 folio is maybe 44 ounces.
Sure.
I know the CZs that I used to shoot were 42 ounces. So basically for my 42 ounce CZ, when they put it on the scale at Production Nationals, that's the only time they ever did it. It had to be 44 ounces, from 40 ounces to 44 ounces. You couldn't be more than 2 ounces on either side of what the listed official weight is. All they did is they changed it to now it's 4 ounces either direction. And so if you put a tungsten guide rod in your CZ, and then you put maybe brass base plates. Yeah, base plates on your mags. And maybe it makes your gun 2 or 3 ounces heavier. That's legal now. I don't think that really matters.
I don't either.
I mean,
the gun already weighs 1,000,000 pounds. You're trying to swing around in between targets anyway.
Yeah, there's.
That doesn't matter.
That's kind of in vogue right now. Is like everybody wants these really heavy guns, but like at some point, like if you're trying to shoot with like a 10-pound dumbbell,
yeah, you try pushing that in between.
At some point,
for transitions.
At some point, there's a limit to how good it can be. So I think we're kind of already at that point with guns like a CZ or the Shadow 2 is like 48 ounces or something like that.
It's crazy.
The Tanfolio is like 44 ounces. I think we're pretty much at the limit already of like that's about as heavy as the gun needs to be. I guess the only difference is now you can put a tungsten guide rod on your Glock, but it still has to be. You can't put like a frame weight on or anything like that. So, I mean, okay, so you can add 3 ounces to your Glock, and I don't know if that's really going to make any difference. The point we're getting at is the same people are still going to win. Like people can complain about it all they want, but I don't really think it's going to change anything. To me, the identity of production is not the productionness. Like it is not. It hasn't been for a long time about taking a stock gun and competing with a stock gun. Like that ship sailed a really long time ago. Like people are going to take guns that are 9mm that are either a double action, single action, or striker fired guns, make them as good as they can within the production rules, and they're going to race with that. And the whole appeal of production, I think, is 10-round mag limits. It's minor, and it's not 2011s that cost $4,000. So that hasn't changed. Like to me, that's what production. That's what matters in production, is the actual stuff that affects how people compete in that division.
And you mentioned 10 rounds. I did want to bring up. I've heard like so much belly aching on the internet. Everyone wants to move production to 15.
It's like 3 guys. It's like 3 guys.
They're making a lot of noise.
It's 3 guys who make a lot of noise. I don't think there's that many people who really want.
It would
15.
Just my little quick rant. It would turn it into limited minor. If you want to do that, just go shoot limited. I like the fact that production, if you have 10 rounds and you possibly, let's say 10 plus 1, and you have an 8 or 9 round array with some steel, that makes you be more accurate. You have less rounds just to throw all over. That's kind of the appeal of production, I think. You have to be more accurate. Your stage plan, you can't just go like a slob. You see these big areas and just hammer a bunch of targets and do a mag change in the middle somewhere wherever you feel like it. So I think the planning and the accuracy needed for production, the minor scoring, that's part of the charm for that division. So I was really glad they did not change the capacity to 15 rounds. I would have strongly disliked that.
Yeah, I like what Mike Foley. I think he actually said this on Arik Levy's podcast 2 years ago, which is that we already have divisions where the ROs have to count to 6 rounds, to 8 rounds, and to 10 rounds for between revolver and single stack and production. And now we're going to add another division where the ROs have to count to 15 rounds. And so, like, now they're going to have to take their shoes off and count on their toes for how many rounds
while they're
shooting.
watching for safety.
That's unenforceable in the same way. I mean, yes. If you loaded your mag with 16 rounds and shot a stage and then posted the video on YouTube, you would get crucified, or your squad would notice. But maybe they wouldn't. Like, maybe you could get away with it if you didn't post the video and nobody caught it in the moment, and nobody's standing there taking their shoes off to count on their toes that you've only fired 16 rounds before reloading in your before your slide locked bag. So I think 10 rounds is a lot more enforceable, and I think some people also propose just make the production mags. That's the limit. You can load your production mags all the way up. I really don't like that.
Strongly dislike that,
because now you have to change guns. People got so worked up about being able to change your triggers, mag releases, whatever. But if we make it where you have to use the production mags, now we're changing guns because. Well, you got to get a gun that can hold 19 rounds with factory magazine. Otherwise, you're falling behind. So if you shoot a gun that only holds 15 rounds in the magazine or 17 rounds in the magazine, and some other guy has a 19 round mag and they can do +1, so you can hold 20 in the gun, and half the stages now he can shoot without a mag change, and you're over here changing mags 2 or 3 times on that stage. I just don't like that idea. I think it creates this weird thing where now we're tuning mags, like we're doing the same thing in production that we are
specific follower and spring. And
exactly. So now you got to tune your Glock mags so they hold 18 rounds instead of 17. That's just adds this whole other arms race on top of production, which everybody's complaining now that we added this whole extra arms race into production by changing these rules. And so I think if you made a production capacity, that would make the issue so much worse. So I'm glad I think 10 rounds is.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring that up.
That to me, again, that's the identity of the division, and that's what's going to be the same. The same people are still going to win. I just don't think it matters that much.
The last thing I have to say about production and limited, if you look at the breakdowns for participation for how many people are shooting, production and limited are the two most popular divisions. Literally over 50%. I think it was 51 or 52 for those divisions together. It's over half the competitors. Mm-hmm. So why would you mess with a good thing anyway? If it's already successful, leave it alone. But that was my rant on why it needs to stay at 10.
Yeah. Well, they did.
They did mess with it, but
they did mess with it.
Not terribly. It's fine.
But I mean, they messed with it to make it more enforceable, which I don't have a problem with.
What about the rest of the rule changes? Anything else that I care about?
So there's some stuff about PCC and carry optics, and it's like, I mean, I don't really care that much, but we can talk about it. So PCC, they clarified some rules.
The only thing that matters is you can bump fire now.
Well, you already could. There was no rule against it.
Unless you're going to an outlaw match. But you're going to get treated like an outlaw there anyway.
It's now explicitly allowed that you can bump fire your gun, not with a bump fire stock.
Or a binary trigger.
Which I just found out what that was like last week. That sounds terrible.
Dude, you can burn up lots of ammo that way. It's great.
But yeah, so if you have your gun set up, there's one person who is he will remain nameless, except his name is Max Leograndis, and he's the PCC national champion for USPSA last year. He famously got DQ'd from an outlaw PCC match with had $5,000 or $10,000 on the line. Because basically he was shooting too fast, and because he could bump fire his trigger on command, because it was a really light trigger, whatever. He had it set up just right where he could bump fire it on command and shoot 0.08 splits on it and go crazy fast. He got DQ'd just because
he was unsafe because he was so good at it.
Yeah, I mean that's my read on it.
You're too good. You're better than I am.
Yeah, I can't shoot.
That's unsafe.
The RO said I can't shoot that fast, so this guy can't shoot that fast. We're going to DQ him. And it's like some IDPA stuff. So that's the problem with going to outlaw matches. I think that's why we both stick to USPSA.
Yeah, you get treated like an outlaw.
Yeah, you go to an outlaw match, and now you get treated like an outlaw. So yeah, but that wasn't even a USPSA issue. It wasn't a USPSA match, but USPSA did add language into the rulebook to specifically allow that technique. If it's a technique and not a equipment thing where your gun is just doubling on its own.
Yeah. That carry optics and PCC are official divisions, which I mean, we saw that coming. You already bought all the equipment. They're not going to say, "Hey, you bought all this gear. Guess what? Just kidding."
And carry optics, I think this was already. I mean, this is just an extension of what they've already done to it, which is that you can now go all the way through the slide. And it's just I think it's just so you can buy those really cool looking aftermarket slides that all the tactical guys if you subscribe to Chris Costa, Chris Costa.
You have to yell. You're always wearing an appendix carry.
Yeah.
And then you yell contact really loud, and then you draw and shoot through your windshield of your car.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, your own car. You use it on the range.
Or dummies with die packs.
Yeah, and you post hashtag EDC pictures on Instagram where you
pocket dump.
Yeah, where you have a gun and 3 extra mags.
A pocket dump is like a G17 with the RMR and 3 30-round sticks.
And a suppressor. And, you got 3 knives and a wallet and a cell phone. And it's... But
heavy guns are what win, by the way. That's why 10 foliars is so good, because they're heavy.
Yeah.
But I'm going to buy this Zeb slide with a bunch of holes cut in it, because it's going to make me better.
Yeah,
anyway, who cares?
So if you're into that sort of thing, and, you want to shoot carry optics, but your carry gun wasn't legal for carry optics because it was milled all the way through the slide... because it's you're way better at smoking fools with your gun that has the slide lightning and everything. Now you can shoot that in USPSA in carry optics. It's fine.
I think that makes sense too. Who
cares?
Makes
sense, and who cares? 2 people shoot the division. I mean,
hey, more than single stack though.
Yeah, I just whatever. Whatever. I mean, the production matters because people actually shoot the division. Carry optics. Just do whatever you want. Who cares? Just go.
You don't have to hate.
Just go play over in the corner with your carry optics gun.
They're still better than single stack and revolver shooters. So
the better revolver, yes. Single stack, I don't know. Yeah, and so they're both official divisions now, which we saw that coming. I mean, so we'll figure out what the next 2 divisions they're going to add are going to be, and we'll get up to 10.
Well, we need polymer production. That would be great.
Yeah, striker fired production and double action, single action production should be separate. And then separate but equal.
And instead of having 9 or 500 days of nationals, whatever we have, we can have a month of nationals.
We should have nationals every day of the year for 365 days of the year. So
that's excessive. A month of nationals would be great, though, right?
I don't know. I say if once we get 365 divisions, then that's enough.
Well, now you're being excessive, but whatever.
Well, I think 8 is already excessive. I think we've already passed that point.
It's dumb.
Whatever. So, you got anything else you want to say on this? I think we've railed on USPSA enough. Made enough personal attacks on people for what division.
I'm not the one naming names.
Yeah.
So we haven't got any hate mail or death threats. So after this, if you do hate on Cody or you want to threaten his life, just message me and I'll just send you his cell phone and his address.
Yeah, perfect.
You can show up.
All right. Well, that's all we got for you guys. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. And
send us questions.
Yeah, send us questions. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.